Hi, today I'm going to show you how to install the MongoDB as well as have the config servers, the Mongo shards, and the replica sets all set up within the VirtualBox virtual machine. Right, MongoDB is an open source document database and leading NoSQL database written in C++, and these are all the features that you can find, and it's really good for pulling in big data. And it's really fast and it's very easy to do sharding. So I'm going to try to replicate what's on this picture here, on this link. And I've got a client which is also on the Ubuntu master, and that's running Node.js. I'm going to talk to Mongo Shard, which is also in the same server. And there will be 3 config servers, and they will be the ENF. And they've got each of 4 gigabytes, okay, with 1 processors. Okay, ABC will be the replica sets, and they will be here. Okay, they are the shards. So this will be replicated within the VirtualBox manager. This server that I have is the HP, it's not that. It's the PowerEdge C6100. There are 4 system boards, within the one chassis, 4 nodes. I'm only using one of them, okay? And the specs are all over here, okay? And that's the one of the servers, okay? And that's the one. Okay, looking close-ups, that's one. I'm using one of the nodes in here, so we don't need to look at that again. Right, so in earlier videos I've shown how I set up VirtualBox. Installing the Ubuntu 13.10, the full version over here, and the minimal CD install, which is the mini.iso 13.10 Ubuntu on all these machines. This master has 8 gigabytes of RAM with 4 processors. The rest are all ABC. They've got all 8 gigabytes of RAM. The ENF, they've got 4 gigabytes of RAM. Okay. And all of them has been installed. Okay. The IP addresses are here. So A, B, and C, which is A, B, and C, okay, right? They are listed here, okay? That's the local IP addresses. For D, E, and F, they are here. So I've got D, which I'll show you how to quickly set up MongoDB. It's relatively straightforward. And E is here, F is here, and those are the IP addresses. Okay, this will be running the config servers, right? The Ubuntu slave A, B, and C will be the replica sets. Okay, and the master, which is here, okay, this will be running the Mongos as well as the client, which I may or may not show later, but this is just a video for MongoDB. Right, so now all of them has been installed with MongoDB. Okay, the directory structures has been set up properly too. I'll just pull this down slightly. Okay, SSH servers are all on all of them. This is shown in my previous videos, and how to install it, how to set up properly, including adding the IP addresses correctly, static IP addresses. Okay, now I left this open so that I can show you how MongoDB can be installed. Right, so the first step is to make sure that the system is updated. Okay, if you need to get the build essential in, then get it installed. Okay, and that may be what you need later for your development. Now let's install MongoDB. Install MongoDB. Press yes. Okay, and let it continue. Okay. Right, so it's installed. Okay, and you can see that Mongo is there. Okay, it's not connecting because you're not running the server yet, and it's not necessary here because D is a config server, and we'll run something here later. Now, usually you will create a directory. Okay, right here. We need a sudo for that, and that stores the databases. But D is just the config server, so but let's just install it anyways. Okay, so D is done. Now for config servers, you will need another directory, okay, other than the DB folder. And for this directory, it stores the config data files. Okay, all the information will be stored there. So you will need you need that folder. If you don't, then if you run MongoDB config server, it will tell you that one of the folders, okay, is not existing. So let's create that folder. Sudo mkdir data config db. Okay. Right. So that's created, and we need to change the. Let's try to run that first. Okay. Now E and F, they also don't have the folder. Okay, let's just pull this up. Okay, sudo mkdir config db. Okay, and also F, because these three will be the config servers. Okay, we may need to change the ownership, but we'll just leave it now. It should probably work. After creating the folder, we will need to try to run config server, but there may be a problem, as we shall soon see. So I like to do the MongoDB config server. Okay, now it's telling you that something's wrong. The MongoD.log is as a permission denied, but I think the real problem lies in the ownership of the folder. Okay, so we're going to change the ownership to myself, config db. Okay, and let's try to run it again. Okay, now it's waiting for connection on port 27019. Okay, so the first config server is up. Okay, we're going to try to replicate. Let's change ownership of the config db folder. Okay. And so also. Right. Okay, I'm going to run the second config server. Okay, and that's listening on port 28019. Okay, for this one, okay, it's tricky to get the mouse in a remote desktop. So 28019. Okay, that's listening on port 28019. Yes, also this 28019. So Ubuntu Mini D, okay, D, E, and F as config servers are running. Okay, let's tidy this up slightly. Okay. Okay. Right, so the config servers are running, and now we want to try to run the shard server. Okay, and we're going to run it on the Ubuntu master. Okay. Right, running the shard server requires you to connect to the 3 config servers. Okay, so that's the E and F. Right. Okay, just share the screen. Now, so in the parameters that you send in to the Mongo shard, you will need to send in the IP addresses of D, E, and F, and also the port number that it's listening to. In this case, it's, if you look here, okay, follow my mouse, it's 28019. Okay, and the 4 config servers are 100.104.05 and 06. Okay, so I'm going to run Mongo's config db, okay, and putting in the IP addresses 192.168, 100, and 104. And 104 is listening on port 28019 with a comma followed by config server mini E and mini F. So 192.168.100.105. The port number is the same, 28019. Okay, because it's listening to them. Right. The final config server is on Ubuntu Mini D, and that's the IP address 106.28019. Okay, so let's double check again. So we've got 100, 104.28019, 100.05, 28019, 100.06, 28019. Okay. Okay. Pressing enter starts the Mongo shard, and it's putting in the config, and after a little while we shall see what happens. There seems to be an error. Right, okay. I think this can be easily solved. Okay, we'll just let it finish. Okay, the connection startup check failed. Right, none of the config servers are connected. Okay, the main reason I think is I misread the port number. Okay, if you see here at the bottom, the web admin console is waiting at 28019, but the init and listening port is actually 27019. So let's change that. Let's clear the screen. Okay, it should be 27019 on all of the config servers. Okay. Furthermore, I think we should also add a port number that Mongo listens to. I'd usually put 27020, and that's the port that has always been working. Okay, when I press enter, okay, let's just show the screen. Something should happen on the 3 servers. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so they're all connecting, and it seems that the sync cluster connection is working. Okay, everything seems fine. Right, so now that it's connected, okay, you can see a connection accepted from the server, the Mongoose. We can start setting up the replica sets. Okay, so the shards. Let's set up the shards, which are the replica sets as we have seen earlier. The config servers are working, the Mongoose is talking to them, and now over here we have the mini A, B, and C, which we will set up the replica sets. The hard disk size is much bigger than the others because the config servers doesn't really need big hard disk space, but for A, B, and C, I have 60 gigabytes of disk space in the virtual machines each, so that should suffice for lots of data. The first thing is to make sure that we have the ownership of the data/db folder. So I'm going to change the ownership to myself. Okay, and also making sure that this is changed. Okay, thirdly, I'm going to just leave that and just show you what happens if you don't change the permission for the folder. So if I run MongoDB Sharding server, okay, it's not going to run. Okay, but going back here, okay, with the ownership running, it's waiting for connections on port 27018. The web console is 28018. So for the web console, you can actually get some external services that talks to the server and pulls out data, so you can monitor your servers. That's going to be, and run the shard server. Okay, and for C, we have to change the ownership. Okay, before running. Okay, run. Okay, so it is running. So at this step, everything's working in order, but the server doesn't really talk to the shard server yet. You have to add it. You have to connect to the shard server and try to add it to at least 3 virtual machines where Mongo shards are running onto the routing service. Okay, so that's the next step. Okay, continuing from the previous step, we're now going to add the shard into the cluster. Okay, each one of them, the A, B, and C. And the way to do that is to try to log into the Mongo shard server. And this is where the shard server is running at the master. So I'm going to have to open a terminal. And remember that the port numbers are for the shard servers and the IP addresses are quite important. Okay, before adding that, let's make sure we have everything set up correctly. So these are the 3 config servers. Okay, and these are the replica sets. So the replica sets, we have the IP addresses. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so the IP addresses that it's listening to from is 27018. Okay, 27018. So that's the port number. copy that. Okay, we've got the IP address, we also have the port numbers. The routing server where we are logging into now has a different IP address. Earlier we set that as 27020. Okay, so port 27020. Let's lengthen this. So remember that earlier we used that command, mongos config db with all the IP addresses. 10. Okay, that connects to the config servers. Okay, and 27019 is the port number for each of the config address, and we set up until EF, and that's 5. Okay, and after that we put in the port number, which is 27020. Okay, so that's the port number that we are going to log into. Alright, that was the command that we run, okay, over here earlier. So let's try to connect to it. Okay, the command to connect to that is to call Mongo 192.168.100.100. That's local to this master node. Okay, the port number is 27020. Okay, and let's try to get in and see. Oh, one more thing, we need to get in through the admin access. Okay, that allows us to change things. Okay, so let's connect. So now we are in, and as you can see, okay, connection accepted from here. So we're actually logging into here. So we're just making sure that we're logging into this server. Let's go back. Show DBS. Okay, and it is still empty. So at this point, it's important to do a few commands just to add the shards. Okay, sh.status. Let's have a look at the status first. Okay, so there are no shards yet, it's empty. So let's try to add the first shard, db run command. You could also do sh.add shard, but let's do it this way. Add shard. Okay, no, actually, no, let's do that command. sh.add shard. Okay. And we need a double quote 192.168.100. What is the replica set? The first one. That should be slave A. Okay, slave A has, okay, each of these has 60 gigabyte each in each node. Okay, whereas the config servers only have 8 gigabytes. Okay, so we're going to put .101. The IP address is, the port number is that, the port number is 27018. Okay, we're adding shard number 1, and let's see what happens. So shard 1 added, okay, it's automatically naming it that way. Yeah, I could have put in the name, but let's leave it as that. So, and then we have 2, okay, which is Ubuntu slave B, right here, okay, with the same port number. And let's add number 3. Okay, now that the shards are added, we need to run a few commands, but let's just check the status. Okay, as you can see, we have the shards now, and over here we can see that there are commands, okay, in the console showing that we have added the shards. Now this is not the end yet, because we want to enable sharding. Right, okay. Let's do a db run command. Enable sharding. Okay, so what sort of database will you be doing? Will you be using? We could use a test database for later, okay, so that we can test it. Let's use testdb. Okay, close that. Okay, making sure we have everything in order. Okay, that's fine. So we're enabling sharding for this particular database, which is named testdb. So anything that puts in here will be sharded. What about the collection? Okay, we're going to write another command. Okay, this time we're going to say the shard collection will be testdb.testData. So this collection will be sharded. Okay, we can give it a key. Okay, and that key is important. I'm going to just put name 1. Okay, and I'll explain that later in another video. Let's make sure that's right. Unexpected token. Key. One. Okay. Anyways, we use another command. It's easier. Shard collection. Okay. testdb.testData. Okay, this is much easier. Name 1. That's the key. Okay, I'm sure that's right. Okay, so that is fine. Let's try to see the status again. Alright, so that's added. Okay. Okay, that's true. So now we have a complete setup of the MongoDB sharding. Okay. So we have, let's hang on a minute. So we've got a master with Mongoose running. We've got D, E, and F. These are the config servers with, relatively less space and less base memory. We've got Ubuntu Mini A, B, and C as the replica sets. Okay, and we have added everything in order and also logging in as an admin, adding all the shards. So by right, if you start to input data, and lots of them, say 100 million or so, into testdb and test.data, okay, it should distribute the data throughout the replica sets. Okay, so that's a setup. Okay, so in the next video, I'm going to test this by trying to insert data into here and see what happens. Thank you very much for watching. If you like my video, click like, comment, give suggestions, and also subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.